Here we are. TSN Hockey analyst Frankie Corrado is with us. Pretty good couple of games to start the series so far. You've been enjoying the series so far?
It's been good. It's a Battle of Ontario. What more could you ask for?
Exactly. And the Leafs take a 2-0 series lead for the first time since 2002?
Is that a real stat?
That's really crazy. Wild. That's a really wild stat. Kind of sad, but hey, they're up 2-0. In what ways, from what you've seen, is this group different than groups we've seen in the past for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
It has to start with Anthony Stolarz. In net, this looks so much different than it has looked in the past, whether it was Freddie Anderson or Jack Campbell or Ilya Samsonov or when Joseph Woll got put into spot duty as a young goaltender. Seeing Anthony Stolarz in the net and what he brings to the table, it looks and feels different. He's a big body. He covers a ton of net. He battles. Like we saw him go toe-to-toe with Ridley Gregg tonight, which was pretty cool to see him get in his face. But, you know, the Ottawa Senators had a lot of chances and some shots in the second period, and Anthony Stolarz just exudes the kind of confidence that you want to see in your number one guy, and that leads to, you know, getting a contribution in overtime from a player that isn't Nylander, Matthews, Marner, Tavares. Max Domi comes through for you. So you're always looking for things with this Leafs team, I find specifically. How is it different than in the past? Because the past has always been, you know, so doom and gloom when it comes to playoff time. The goaltender looks great. It looks different than any goaltender they've had. And now you're 2 games in, and you got an overtime goal from a depth player. And that's a nice thing to have for this Toronto Maple Leafs group.
All right, let's talk about the Ottawa Senators in the postseason for the first time since 2017, down 2-0 in the series. Do you think they've been able to get up to the intensity of postseason play?
They have been able to get up to the intensity, and in this game, it felt like they weren't crossing the line to the point that it really took them out of the game, and that was the issue in Game 1.
Right.
But in Game 2, of course, you know, you take a penalty, you give up a power play goal. How do you respond? Well, you score your own power play goal, and Brady Tkachuk finally arrives in the series, and I thought he had a much better game. And, of course, he's the one who scores the first goal for the Sens, and then you find a way to tie it up after a second period where it's all Ottawa. You force Toronto to take the penalty, and that second period culminates with a goal that gives you a little bit of momentum. You carry that through into the third, and you know, in the third period, they had a ton of shot attempts. Nothing was actually getting to the net, but it didn't deter them. They stayed with it. They finally tied it up, and we're just seeing right now, like Toronto is, as much as they've lost a lot in the past, they're a more experienced playoff group, but the Ottawa Senators are showing that they can make strides here in a short period of time so far in this series.
You mentioned something that caught my attention. You talked about the fact that, you know, you're looking for production outside of the core 4 if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Matthew Knies has got to be an X factor for them.
Man, Matthew Knies brings so much to the table for this group. But it's funny you watch him because he's got the big body. He plays with good players. He plays in big situations, a.k.a. on the power play. And he gets a lot of focus and a lot of attention. And that either leads to him getting opportunities to score or someone else around him getting opportunities to score. This is in this game. He gets the attention of Nick Jensen. Jensen is all over him. The puck ends up going off Jensen and into the back of the net. You go back to Game 1. Here's Knies in front of the net. Watch the attention that he gets from a guy like Jake Sanderson, so much so that leaves John Tavares in the middle of the ice open to have a tip attempt. And then Matthew Knies going to the front of the net again with Sanderson. So there's an element to having that big body, and then you see it at 5-on-5. This is early in the game in Game 2, getting in on the forecheck, playing with the best players for Toronto, setting up Mitch Marner for a chance that likely should have been a goal. Like, this Matthew Knies, what he's doing and what he's bringing to the table, this adds an element that, you know, you're right, we look to things that maybe have been different in the past. That's a power forward who can make skilled plays, play with the big boys, and keep up. That's been a significant element for the Toronto Maple Leafs in this series.
So who should be an X factor for the Ottawa Senators as this series shifts back to the nation's capital? Who would you like to see more of in Game 3?
So coming into Game 2, I would have said Brady Tkachuk. But he has the goal. Thought he had a better game than in Game 1. Now I want to see it from Tim Stützle. And we're starting to see the signs of it. Like, he made some good plays. He got to areas of the ice where he could create a little bit more. But that's your number one center. So you're always going to expect more out of that guy. And in a situation now where you're down in the series, that's who you ask more from. So I'd like to see a little more from Tim Stützle. Not saying that he hasn't been great. It's just you need more from guys like that in this type of series.
Leafs and Sens back in action in Ottawa, Game 3 on Thursday. Frankie's going to be back on this show just a little later. We're going to talk Oilers and Jets.